What is up, guys? Today we're going to be talking about some of the best gaming phones in that $200 price range. All of these are well under 300. So let's go ahead and get started here. I still think the best gaming phone that you can pick up right now for well under 300 is still the LG G8. I just think this is an excellent phone. Not only is it the most featured pack spec'd out phone on the list, it's a very powerful one as well, with the Snapdragon 855 and the Adreno 640. You also have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. So this is a very powerful phone running Android 10. It should get the latest Android 11 update eventually, but it's a very fast phone when it comes to gaming and stuff like that. I've never had an issue. It plays Call of Duty, PUBG, Fortnite all on high settings, which is really awesome. And I've always had a really good experience, especially with the display on here. It's a POLED HDR10 display, at 6.1 inches, and it's 1440p display at 564 for the PPI. So just a I guess pretty compact size nowadays, but the resolution is 2K. It's beautiful, high PPI, so it's just a beautiful screen to look at color wise. So you do have a really good design on here. It's a glass and aluminum design. It's also IP68 dust and water resistant as well, which is really nice. And another perk to this phone is you have excellent audio experience with the not only the boombox speaker but the quad DAC as well. So you do have that headphone jack, and you can get really good audio if you have a really good pair of headphones. Just turn the quad DAC on. In addition, you have NFC, you have really good Face ID, a physical fingerprint scanner on the back as well, and the cameras on the G8 are really good. If you want to see the G8 more in depth, I have videos on all of these phones going in more in depth, but you have an excellent camera setup, 12 megapixel standard and a 16 megapixel ultra wide with 4K video. You also have a really good selfie camera as well. You can throw Gcam on this phone. There is a Gcam port too, and yeah, so I think battery life is pretty solid on the G8. It's a 3500 milliamp battery. I usually can get around 8 hours of screen on time with this phone, and you also have 21-watt fast charging and 9-watt wireless charging. So this is the most powerful phone on the list. This is going to be the Samsung Galaxy A70. I've been playing with this phone for I think about a week now, and it's just been an awesome experience. It's a very fast phone, and it's also pretty good for gaming. It's around $219 right now. All links will be down below. I really like this phone too. So it's got the Snapdragon 675 processor on here, and the Adreno 618 GPU. You also have micro SD support, 128 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. So the phone is really fast out of the box with Android 10 and One UI 2.5, which is something that I really like. It's a very big phone, so it's a Super AMOLED 6.7 inch display. It's 1080p 393 for the PPI. Very big phone, water drop notch. I love the display on here. It's very beautiful, very color accurate, and just vibrant deep blacks. Absolutely love the display. It's one of my favorite things about this phone. It is an all plastic phone, so and it is kind of thin, so I would recommend like picking up a case if you have smaller hands. It can kind of be like a little big or uncomfortable. You have to do that like that shimmy thing with your hand, but I would pick up a case. It usually solves the problem for me. So you do have a headphone jack on here, a pretty decently loud speaker. You also have NFC on board. The fingerprint scanner is actually under the glass. It's not super fast, but it's fast and it works 100% of the time. So I've never had an actual issue. You do have face unlock on this phone that you can take advantage of if you don't like that. But yeah, so just speed wise and spec wise, you're getting a pretty good spec sheet for the $200, especially if you're a Samsung fan. Also, you have pretty respectable cameras on here. You have a triple camera setup. It's a 32 megapixel standard, 8 megapixel ultra wide, and a 5 megapixel depth sensor. You also get 4K video and 32 megapixel selfie camera that shoots in 1080p. Overall, the cameras are good for this price point. If you're in good lighting, you will get an excellent photo, a very Samsung saturated color on here. You also will get pretty good detail, depth of field. The cameras are okay. It just kind of is lackluster if you take the light out. It doesn't do that well in low light situations, but overall this is an excellent phone, and also has very good battery life with a 4,500 milliamp battery and some pretty decent fast charging as well at 25 watts. So you get really good battery life with this phone if you're trying to do some gaming on here. So overall, I really like this phone. Next is the Xiaomi Poco X3 NFC. So this guy goes for around 250. The price kind of fluctuates, so it kind of bounces up and down. Now what makes the Poco X3 pretty unique for gaming around this $200 price point is you actually have a 6.67 inch 120 hertz IPS display on here. So if you're a gamer and you want to play games that are compatible with the high refresh rate, then that is a really awesome experience, because everything is just super buttery smooth on this display, and it's a really cool experience to have. So it's a 1080p display, $395 for the PPI. I had no problems with it. It has a punch hole, pretty slim bezels. It was a really nice display. So the specs on this guy, you do have the Snapdragon 732G and the Adreno 618, micro SD support, and 64 gigs of internal storage and 6 gigs of RAM. The phone again is very fast, and again a very good gaming phone, but the highlight with this phone is that you want to take advantage of the games that are compatible with the high refresh rate, because it's gonna just look really smooth, everything's gonna feel really smooth, and it's just a really cool experience. So games, Call of Duty, Fortnite, PUBG all work on here. Of course you won't be able to max them out, not like on the G8. The G8 will perform better than this, but like I said, you have that high refresh rate, which is really cool. So you have Android 10 and MIUI 12 on here as well. You have actually stereo speakers on here, which is always a plus, because the speakers are pretty loud and I really like them. So that is always a really nice experience when the manufacturer does that. You also have the headphone jack on board, NFC, and this is actually one of the more rare phones to have an infrared port as well. So if you have like a TV or air conditioner, you can control that with this phone, which is really cool. You also have the fingerprint scanner side mounted, which is something that I really love on here. And one of the cool things with this phone is that it has a massive battery life, or a battery for this size phone. Now it's not super chunky, but it's got a 5,160 milliamp battery and 33 watt fast charging, so the battery life is just crazy on this phone. So if you're somebody that really is gaming hard, this phone was really hard to kill in a day. I could not do it. It's just a beast on battery life, so take note of that. Just a massive battery. So you do have a quad camera setup on this phone. It's a 64 megapixel standard, 13 megapixel ultra wide, 2 megapixel macro, 2 megapixel depth, 4K video, a 20 megapixel selfie. I like the cameras on here. I thought they were really good. They have a really good color. Image processing was pretty much on point with detail and depth of field and stuff like that. I didn't have any issues with it. The camera module isn't the prettiest to me still. It has not grown on me, the look of it, or just the back of the phone in general, but the cameras are really good all around. Video, all that stuff is super solid. So you're getting a really good package with this phone, and I guess the standout feature again is that 120 hertz at this price point. Next is the LG G7. Now this is a phone you can find well below 200. Again, those links will be down below, and this is just an awesome phone, still one of my favorite phones. It is just really nice. So the highlight with the G7 I think would be, I think the specs on here are pretty powerful. So you have the Snapdragon 845 and the Adreno 630. There's no game that this phone can't really blow through. Fortnite, PUBG, Call of Duty, I played them all on this phone. It runs relatively smooth at high settings. You also get Android 10. I guess the unique thing about the G7, I really love the body of this phone and how it feels in the hand. It's an aluminum and glass design, and it's, I guess, kind of compact by today's standards, since it's got a 6.1 inch display. It's 1440p, 564 for the PPI, and it's HDR10 as well. It's kind of, I guess, compact, but it feels super solid in the hand. So I love gaming on this phone because of how it feels in the hand. It feels extremely comfortable to me. Now you do have micro SD support, as well as 64 gigs of internal storage and 4 gigs of RAM on here, which I have no issues with, since you have expandable storage if that 64 gigs is not enough. You also have a really loud boombox speaker on here. It's a single firing speaker, but it has really great quality with bass presence and just loudness, mids and highs. You also have the quad DAC again on here. If you're really into audio with your headphones, you can turn that on. You have NFC on board with this phone as well, physical fingerprint scanner on the back too. And you have pretty respectable cameras on the G7 as well. You have a dual camera setup, 64 megapixel standard, 16 megapixel ultra wide, 4K video, 8 megapixel selfie camera. Takes very good photos still. And again, you can install that Gcam port if you want to get the most out of the camera. But overall, I was really satisfied with the G7's cameras. But the unique thing is this is one of the more powerful phones on the list, since it is a an older phone technically, but it's still very powerful, especially when it got the Android 10 update. It's just blazing fast now, and like I said, it runs through games just fine, and it's an older flagship, so you're getting a lot with this phone, an IP rating as well. You also get a 3000 milliamp battery and 18-watt fast charging with wireless charging. I'm not gonna lie, the battery life on the G7 is it's not gonna blow your mind. You get around like 6 hours, maybe 6 hours and 30 minutes of screen on time, depending on how you use it. So you're not gonna get crazy good battery life. You can get through the day with the G7, but that's about it. But overall, for the price, this is an awesome spec'd out phone as well. So I like to include an iPhone in every one of these videos just to make sure for my Apple fans. And if you're looking for a pretty good gaming phone under 200 bucks or around 200 bucks, the iPhone 8 is still really solid. I really love this phone as well. So it's still got a really compact design. Also, this is, I guess, what makes it unique nowadays is that it's really small. It's a 4.7-inch display. It's 720p plus display. The display is fine. I had no issues with it. And like I said, if you like smaller phones, because I do like to carry around like this type of phone or like an SE, because if you have a super big phone, you can bring a small phone if you're somebody that uses multiple phones. But what's cool about this phone is that you got a nice design. It's a glass and aluminum frame, IP67 dust and water resistant, but you actually get iOS 14, the latest version with this phone, which is really nice. You have the widgets and all that stuff, which is awesome for an older flagship. You do have the Apple A11 chip. I had no issues gaming Call of Duty Mobile, PUBG. It all ran fine on here. Now Fortnite isn't going to run like at super high settings or whatever, but it pretty much blows through anything in the app store still. So it's a very fast phone. Of course, you don't have micro SD support, and 64 gigs of internal storage is on here, 2 gigs of RAM. But like I said, it was really fast, multitasking, everything was pretty sufficient on the iPhone. Now of course you have NFC with your Apple Pay, and the fingerprint scanner on here is fine. The Touch ID works really great. I guess the only thing a lot of people will say is that this phone, I guess design wise from the front, hasn't really aged that well with such big bezels, but overall I think it's a pretty good price to pay, because again, it's one of the unique phones that are really small these days. So you do have, I guess, not so good battery life. I think I got around maybe like 4 to 5 hours of screen on time. So it's a 1821 milliamp battery, but I'm pretty sure people with iPhones are accustomed to this battery life, so it's fine. But like I said, if you're gonna be charging this phone, it can go through the day, but if you're gaming hard, you're gonna charge this phone definitely. You also have wireless charging on board too, which is really sweet. But again, battery life is not gonna be crazy on this phone. But like I said, you get the latest version of iOS. It's a very fast phone with the A11 chip still. Pretty nice display, and like I said, if you're a small phone lover, you'll love this. So what do you guys think? Be sure to let me know, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.